Yeah, as much as we want to return to normal and return to normal quickly, I think when we return, everybody's going to be a little bit changed. What's happened over the past 10 months to, by that point, a year, has had an impact on our community, had an impact on our student athletes and coaches. But that being said, remain really excited about the direction we're headed in. Our coaches and staff did a remarkable job of stepping up during the pandemic, and the support that they provided to our student athletes, the ways in which they grew and supported the student athletes not only as coaches, as mentors, but also supporting the work that our college community did, was really gratifying to see. In addition, the ways in which our students have grown over this time period has me very excited for where we are going. In terms of the storylines that I'm most excited to return to, number one are the capital projects that we were about to begin right before the virus reached our campus last spring. So we're very excited around the stadiums project at Robin Shepherd and Jesse Miller Fields. We do plan for that to take place this summer, so that we're playing in those new facilities this fall. In addition, we look forward to continuing the work on designing an addition to the Ferris Athletic Center that will not only have the premier squash facility in the Northeast, but also have a comprehensive athletics and wellness program in that, and that's really going to change life for everyone on campus. So we'll continue that work. Over the course of the past few months, we've been awarded several NCAA championships. So we'll be hosting 4 NCAA championships in the next 5 years, 2 in field hockey, 1 in men's ice hockey, and 1 in women's basketball. So a great opportunity to showcase our campus as well as the facilities those teams play in, Shepherd Field, Oosting Gymnasium, and the Capel Center. And then finally, one of the things that I'm most excited about is what the pandemic drew out of some of our areas. So in sports medicine, we've made a number of advances, and the work of our diversity, equity, and inclusion committee. That's important work. We're working very hard on it, and we may not have had both the time, energy, and impetus to get those things going in such a robust way without what's happened over the past 10 months. We monitor what's going on with the pandemic regularly, and part of that is from just what are the virus levels in our community immediately surrounding campus, as well as the greater Hartford community. We also have to keep a look at what's going on around the country and around the world, as we have student athletes everywhere. So we do have some sense of what it's going to look like when people return to campus in mid to late February. All of our students are going to come back between February 18th and February 21st. And that's going to look and feel a lot like student move-in in the fall. We consult regularly with not only our partners at Hartford Healthcare, but with the state institutions of higher learning, as well as the Department of Public Health. And all of those recommendations align similarly, which is when you're bringing a bunch of people back into a congregate living setting like a college, you have to have a quarantine period. You have to get everybody back on a regular testing schedule. So we'll do that. Our hope is that we can do that in a shorter window than we did in the fall, slightly shorter, so that by March 1st, when classes resume in person, that's the same day all of our practices will begin, and we will start to get back to normal. We will still be wearing masks in those practices early on. There will still be a lot of social distancing and a lot of good hand hygiene around the department and campus in those first few weeks, because there's still going to be a lot of virus going on. We're excited about the direction that the vaccines are getting distributed in Connecticut, but it's obviously unlikely that our campus is going to be vaccinated in February or early March, particularly based on the age of our student athletes. So we believe the start of the spring is going to look a lot like the end of the fall, which is getting closer and closer to those full practices. The other thing that we have to keep a very close eye on is the fitness of our student athletes coming back. We do not want to put them in a position where, having not competed, many of them have not competed in now over a year. Many of them have not been training with a team since at least November, if not longer. And so we want to make sure that we're taking a really thoughtful and gradual process back to full speed practices. So our trainers are working really closely with student athletes on that right now, doing virtual visits as well as functional movement screening over the phone and over Zoom, so that our students can come back. We'll have that gradual return to full speed, and then hopefully avoid a lot of those soft tissue injuries that might slow someone down and cause them to miss a season. You talk to any student athlete, whether they were a student athlete at Trinity or another school in the 1950s, up till students who are just finished their first semester as freshmen at Trinity, being a varsity athlete is one of, if not the single most important out of classroom experience that a college student has. So for these students, the opportunity to be around teammates, to practice, to get that teaching and mentoring from coaches really was a cathartic experience for so many students in the fall. Many of our returning student athletes had not had the chance to be around their coaches, teammates since March or earlier. So the opportunity to get back together, our students really felt like that was the highlight of their fall semester. We obviously want to recreate that. We hope we get to a point where that's not as much of an anomaly, but instead it's regularity. So the opportunity for students to get back in those learning environments and actually have out of classroom experiences is really important to us. We hope that over the course of the spring semester that we can not only have varsity sports but also our club sports returning and more recreational opportunities for students as well, because we understand that connection between mind and body and the importance of not only being able to have in-person classes but also have all of our students engaging in physical activity that stimulates learning and growth as well. Yeah, when the athletic department was tasked back in the summer by the president's office of managing all of the COVID testing, I don't think we knew at that moment exactly what we would be taking on. But you look back over the course of the fall and over 50,000 COVID tests administered on campus. That was done all in the field house. All of our coaches, all of our staff taking on additional work in addition to their regular jobs. Now, obviously, we didn't have competition in the fall, but we were still practicing, we were still recruiting, there were still stories to write, there were still athletic trainer visits and budgets to meet. So for our staff to take on over 3,500 hours of additional work in the fall, it was everything from working the front door at the testing center to making sure that the right people had access to our building, to keeping the fitness center open, as well as some coaches who may have compromised health or were older who worked as contact tracers. That was all people within our athletic department. Our coaches, our staff did an amazing job. And the best part was that everybody pitched in. There was no one who said no. There was no one who didn't find a way to play a role. And that's who we are. We're athletes. We're members of teams. We do find a way to contribute. We do find a way to play a role in the success of the greater good. So I think that was a wonderful thing for our department. We will play many of the same roles this spring. I think we've learned a lot from COVID testing, and there's ways we can do it more efficiently. So we're trying to do that now. We also know that hopefully we're going to be returning to competition in the spring. And so from our coaches and many of our staff, we hope that we have the conflicts of running practices, of running competitions, and so we need to find ways to be a little more efficient with what we do. But we do imagine we're going to be doing somewhere in the neighborhood of 45 to 50,000 COVID tests this spring. We hope to also introduce some other testing into that because the NCAA has requirements around 3 tests per week for students who are competing. So those are in some ways fun challenges to get through. Not ones that we ever thought we'd have to deal with 12 months ago, but really proud of everyone in the department and the way that they just all came together, pitched in, and it's really become a bit of who we are. Those are some of our congregating now is in small groups spread out as people come through COVID testing and getting to see each other once in a while.
Competition.
So our first priority is the spring sports. They were the first season to get canceled last March, and we want to make sure that we get those student athletes a real competitive opportunity. And at this point, we're thinking about something that looks very close to a normal season. So the first step is figuring out if there's going to be NESCAC competition. And that will be, one of these regular conversations with our NESCAC partners. Those are taking place right now. And once we have those answers, then we have a better understanding of what the seasons might look like. Are we committed every weekend to playing NESCAC competition, or do we need to look for other competition? We've been engaged in conversations with schools throughout Connecticut as well as throughout New England to make sure that in many ways we've got all of our bases covered. We want to make sure that we give those students every opportunity to have a competitive season that they deserve. So, like I said, NESCAC first, then looking at other partners to fill in a schedule. We hope to have those decisions made by early February. It may not be possible. It may be that we need to wait a little bit longer, but like I said, we're pointing towards the beginning of February to have some semblance of understanding Once those decisions are made, then we focus on the fall and winter teams. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens with the fall and winter teams. We certainly would like to give those students some opportunity for competition. For some student athletes who are late in their careers, it might be the opportunity for closure. Playing a couple more games just might give them that one last chance that they really wanted. For other student athletes, they may choose to use that eligibility and come back and continue their education at Trinity as undergraduates or graduates. So we'll focus on those fall and winter teams once we've got the spring squared away. The interesting part there is finding those other institutions who are also interested. We know how stretched out we will be if we were to have all 30 varsity teams competing at the same time. I'm sure that there are some institutions that might have to make choices about some teams competing and others not. So we'll have to monitor that very closely, but we are. And then once we cross that threshold, then we'll get to that point of what does a spring competition look like? Do we have people, some limited number of family and friends in the stands or not? I think we'll probably start without anyone in the stands, but hopefully we get to a point later in the spring where it's possible to at least bring a few close family members to watch students compete. We know that we're going to have streaming available for those competitions where we can't have any spectators at all in the stands. And so those are all fun challenges for us to work through over the next several weeks. One of the great things is that people do keep reaching out and asking, what can I do to help? Do we need help? And we've been reluctant to over ask because we want to make sure that the things that we're asking for really do matter. So we had a number of alumni reached out over the summer saying, oh, would this be helpful? Would that be helpful as you think about competition? Once we knew we weren't going to be competing in the fall, then those things get kind of pushed backwards, and we say we'll ask when we need it. So we're looking very carefully at what it actually costs to run competitions during a pandemic. It's different. There's some savings that we can realize, but there's also some things that will be additional expenses that we know that we'll have to bear the burden of. We've done an amazing job this fall, all of our coaches and our business office staff, of making sure we're managing those budgets carefully, essentially saving up for what we hope will be the busiest spring in Trinity athletics history. So we're asking everybody just to wait and see. We will be making some direct asks of alumni in certain areas because we know we'll need some help to make this all possible for our student athletes once we know what is possible for our student athletes. We do have Tag Week coming up again. It's February 8th through February 15th, and that is our annual push across all teams and all alumni and parents for annual giving to Trinity Athletics. A significant portion of our budget is made possible through the generosity of our alumni and parents, and so that push will come out in early February for a February 8th through February 15th. Just like last year, we're going to have competitions between our various teams to see who can have the most participation, who can raise the most during Tag Week, and every gift matters as we push this department forward.
Is there anything else